Good afternoon. Y'all didn't know how to react, did you? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Travis Whaley, and I am the new-ish director of music and organist here. I've been here for 4 months, so I think I'm not new anymore, but I'm not old yet, so therefore the ish. Congratulations, you just started your afternoon like any Lutheran church service in Bach's church in Leipzig in 1723. So what you just heard was a setting of Nuncome der Highland, written by Johann Sebastian Bach around 1708. I'm going to be playing both instruments, the piano and the organ this morning. I'll be improvising, I'll be playing pieces by composers. And since I do teach undergraduates music history, y'all will also have to learn this afternoon too. So I hope you're looking forward to that. I'm going to talk between each piece to explain what you're hearing. So the piece that I just played is an improvisation on the Lutheran hymn, Nuncome der Highland. This was one of Bach's favorite hymns. It's a text by Martin Luther, and it's one of the oldest Lutheran hymns. The text, Nuncome der Highland, der Jungfrauen Kind erkannt, das sich wundert alle Welt, Gott solch Geburt ihm bestellt. Savior of the nations come. This was the hymn that a Lutheran church would sing the first Sunday of Advent every year. In his first 2 cantata cycles, Bach wrote 2 cantata settings of this hymn. The piece you just heard is the opening of an organ collection called the Orgelbüchlein, which means little organ book. He wrote about 48 pieces that cover the liturgical year to teach an organist how to improvise. So a lot of Bach's organ music that survives today, you probably hear it in a concert hall, maybe on the radio. It was not concert music. It was church music. He was a prolific composer, but he was a music director at a church. At 4 churches, in fact. When he worked at Leipzig, he was responsible for the music at all 4 churches in the city and would rotate with the choir every week. So a lot of his organ pieces that survive, they're fantastic works, but he probably improvised these pieces in hundreds of different ways. So the way I like to teach this music, and the way I like to play Bach's works especially, or any Lutheran organist, is this is just one possible way they might have improvised on this tune. And this is a lot of how I approach my service music. So prelude, postlude, musical reflections during stewardship, I usually improvise on the themes for the day. This is not new. This is a really old approach to church music, actually. And this is what a lot of organists like Bach and Pachelbel and Buxtehude and Böhm, all of whom you'll get familiar with today, this was how they approached church music, and this is how I like to approach their music. So the second piece I'm about to play for you is another piece by Johann Sebastian Bach, also a setting of the same hymn, Nuncome der Highland. This is in a collection called the Great 18 Chorales that he compiled later in life when he was sort of looking back to all of the different types of organ music he had written and all of the different types of organ music that composers had been writing in Germany for 200 years. And he wrote 18 monuments of this type of organ music. So this is another setting of Nuncome der Highland. I think you'll hear it's very different. I think you'll also hear that it would start a service in a very different way than what you just heard. So this is the Chorale Fugue on Nuncome der Highland. So I think you'll hear how just complex he could be. It's the same tune. It was in my feet that time, but he wrote a very complicated three-voice fugue on top of it, which in layman's terms means something really complicated is happening in three voices with my hands. So this, what I hope shows, these are the same two tunes. These are two different takes on the same Advent hymn. And he usually improvised on this tune the first Sunday of Advent every year that he worked in Leipzig. So those are just two of my favorites from his entire chorale output. I'm going to move to the piano now for a little bit, and I'm going to improvise on some of my favorite Christmas carols on the piano. So the first piece you're going to hear is the first Noel, which is one of my favorites. So I'm not ever going to compare myself to someone like Johann Sebastian Bach, because that's incomparable. But the way that I approach all the music that I play in church is to take the theme, and it's really not that much different. You just do stuff with it. So the first Noel is one of my favorite pieces, and like my mother likes to point out, they usually start small, and then it like explodes. And then usually I'm able to get it back somehow. Also, hi, Mom, she's watching the stream. The next piece I'm going to play is one that gets stuck in my head every year at Christmas time. My parents have lots of different holiday CDs that I think I have memorized now because I've been listening to them ever since I was a little kid. One was by a pianist named Jim Brickman. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with his work. Also the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, lots of those CDs. And every year, I think every musician has some version of Carol of the Bells. And so every time that I improvise this piece, it sounds completely different because in my head, I have Jim Brickman's nice, sweet, peaceful Carol of the Bells. I have the Trans-Siberian Orchestra one I hear every year that's just crazy, insane. And I was here just trying to figure out what pieces I wanted to play on Thursday, and I was messing around with it. And Kyle walked in, and he said, so which way are you going to do it? And I was like, I don't know, I should probably do something peaceful. And he said, or you can try and do both. So I usually improvise on this piece every year. It sounds different every year because I don't actually know how this piece goes. I don't think anybody knows how this piece really goes. Because I think if I said Carol of the Bells, you'd probably think of soft piano or the big Trans-Siberian Orchestra or an arrangement that you sing in choir. They're all different, which is sort of beautiful because that means I can play whatever I want. So this is a version of Carol of the Bells. was fun. I don't know what that'll sound like next year, so I hope you enjoy that. So that was 2021, Carol of the Bells. I'm going to move back to the organ and play one more piece so the term I've been using in the office is a real composer. Kyle and Katie have been asking me what I'm playing, and I said I'm playing real music and some music that I made up. And Katie pointed out that it's all real music. So I'm going to play another written down piece by a dead German man from 1710, so I'll say it that way. So this is a piece by Johann Pachelbel, and I'm sure we all know Johann Pachelbel because of Pachelbel's Canon. If you've ever been to a wedding in the last 50 years, you've probably heard of that. He was an organist who lived between 1650-ish to about 1710. If my dissertation advisor is watching, I'm sorry. I think those are his dates. 1650 to 1710, so a little bit before Bach. And he was another church organist. And so most of his organ music that survives was also used to be played in churches. So this is a chorale setting of the Christmas hymn, Vom Himmel hoch, which literally means from heaven above. So from heaven above to earth I come, and it's singing about the Christ child sent down from heaven, and there's a verse about the angels and praising the Lord and the shepherds. So this is a very popular Lutheran Christmas hymn. And Pachelbel starts it with another fugue in the hands, and then the tune comes in blazing on a huge trombone stop in the pedal. So this is Pachelbel's chorale setting of Vom Himmel hoch, da komm ich her. that's one of my favorite chorale settings from that entire 150-year period, because I think Pachelbel does such a great job of capturing the joy of Christ's birth at Christmas. And today is Joy Sunday of all Sundays. In the Baroque period, if you can't tell, I'm a PhD student. I'm working on my dissertation on Baroque organ music, which is why the 3 pieces you heard today are all pieces that will pop up in my dissertation one day. In this tradition, in the Baroque period, it was very serious to wait until Christmas Day to play Christmas music. I'm of 2 minds on that. I love Christmas music. I also love Advent music, and I think it's really important that we prepare our hearts for Christmas before we throw open the floodgates. One thing I love, what you can hear in the 2 Bach Advent pieces, is there's a sense of yearning and longing in them. And I love this Pachelbel piece because this would be played after Christmas Day. And you can just hear the beginning, the fugue is just so stately and pompous in the best way possible. And then when the trombone comes in with the tune and the hands just fly off, that's what I love about this repertory, because it's functional music and it was meant to be played in churches. And yeah, I've played this on a recital before, but I think it means so much more. 1, to play it in the context of a church. 2, to play it in the season that it would have been played. And then 3, to explain what the audience is hearing. Because yeah, it's pretty music, but I think it takes on such an extra meaning to know why Pachelbel wrote this music and why it sounds the way that it does. So that was one of his Christmas chorales, Vom Himmel hoch, da komm ich her. And I think if that's the first thing I heard in a church service, I would just be overjoyed. The next piece I'm going to play is an improvisation on Hark the Herald Angels Sing. And there will be a few other things thrown in there. I think we'll see where the Spirit leads. My last year at my undergraduate at Virginia Tech, I was the organist and associate music director at a Methodist church in Blacksburg, Virginia. And I had a great mentor. Her name was Leanne Taylor. And my last year there, I got to write a Christmas oratorio for full orchestra, choir, soloists. It was part of my composition portfolio. And the piece ended with a beautiful, big, bombastic shepherd's chorus, and then a big Hark the Herald Angels Sing. So what I'm going to try to do is incorporate some of that fun orchestration into this improvisation on Hark the Herald Angels Sing. I think it'll work. So this is a joyous improvisation for Joy Sunday of Hark the Herald Angels Sing. the next piece I'm going to play on the piano as well. And this is one of my favorite Christmas hymns and one of my dad's favorite Christmas hymns too. The text to this hymn, the poem, In the Bleak Midwinter, was written by a woman named Christina Rossetti. She was a prolific hymn writer. She wrote the text, she wrote the poetry to many of the hymns that you probably know and love today. When she wrote this poem, it was originally titled A Christmas Carol. And a composer named Gustav Holst, if you're familiar with The Planets Suite, that's what he's really known for, found this poem and set it to music. I don't believe we have In the Bleak Midwinter in the Chalice hymnal, but I'm sure that you've heard it at other churches or growing up, and we've probably sung it in here many times as well. It's a very famous Christmas hymn now. And I really love the text of this hymn. I'm not one to focus on the text often. That's something I need to work on. My mind works more in harmony and music than it does on text. Whenever I improvise, I try to at least match whatever I'm playing to what the text of the hymn is. And I want to read you some of the stanzas of this Christmas hymn. It starts, In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan, earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow, in the bleak midwinter long ago. Then she writes, Our God, heaven cannot hold him, nor earth sustain. Heaven and earth shall flee away when he comes to reign. In the bleak midwinter, a stable place sufficed, the Lord God Almighty, Jesus Christ. And then it builds even further. Angels and archangels may have gathered there. Cherubim and seraphim thronged throughout the air, but only his mother in her maiden bliss worshipped the beloved with a kiss. And then the final verse is my absolute favorite. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? I can give to him my heart. So this is an improvisation on In the Bleak Midwinter. The last piece I'm going to play for you all this afternoon is a set of improvisations on the Christmas tune, God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. So 3-4 years ago, I took an organ improvisation class. And for our final project, we had to improvise a 5-movement suite on a tune that we were given the week before. This is also the class that I may or may not have improvised 15 minutes of Star Wars music, which I'm just looking for an excuse to do that in church one day. But this was my final project for this class a few years ago. And we had to improvise in all of these different styles. So we had to present the tune clearly. We had to have a canon. We had to improvise a fugue. We had to improvise a toccata. We had to do all these different things. So I'm going to, it's not going to be exactly what I played 3 years ago after having a semester of this class. But the Spirit will lead it today, and it will be 5 movements of God Rest You Merry Gentlemen in different ways. But you're going to hear the tune improvised upon 5 different ways. I'm going to start with a simple chorale. Then I'm going to play it in canon, so you'll hear it happening in 2 different voices. Then I'm going to attempt to improvise a fugue for you on a snippet of the melody. Then I'm going to, the 4th movement will be an adagio movement, so something slow and very different. And I'm going to conclude with a toccata on God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. So in the last movement, you'll hear lots of flowery stuff happening in my hands, and you'll hear the tune very loudly in the pedal. So this is an improvised suite on God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. Is there anything else I need to say before we head downstairs, maybe? Well, I hope you all will join us downstairs for the chili cook-off right after. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your afternoon with me here. I really enjoyed improvising and sharing some of my favorite music with you all. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Thanks again.